As I was going over what First Thessalonians chapter 4 was really speaking about, I praise Yah for the number of people that truly understood that our promises are to inherit this earth and reign with our Messiah. And there were far less people than before that were tied to that pre-tribulation rapture nonsense. From that discussion, I recognized that there were still some areas of confusion that was still left to be discussed. I appreciate the comment sections of my videos because as I engage with many people, I'm able to understand their thoughts and where the struggles are. I personally believe that an online ministry like this can be more challenging than any other church ministry because pastors, they don't have to deal with things like this. They don't have people judging their sermons by the title before they even said a word. They don't have people stopping them in the middle of the sermon to interject their points. They actually don't even really have to deal with disagreements at all. I mean, how many pastors deliver a sermon and then deal with those who disagree every time they bring something out? I've never seen that in a ministry. But when you engage in ministry like this, people from everywhere like to spew their thoughts, and it can be challenging at times. And that's why I've seen in a lot of the other Christian channels, they don't even engage in their comment section. But with me, I do engage in the comment section, and it can be very helpful engaging in comments because it provides growth for us all. This ministry has grown in understanding over the years from engaging in the comment section. And where there were challenges, I had to go back and review and study and move as Yah has guided me. And I'm very thankful for all of it because it has allowed me to really grow in knowledge of Yah and what he has truly declared in his word. As I have repeatedly said, the challenge for most people is the lack of study in the Old Testament. People have end times views without ever reading the Old Testament, and that is the problem with end times dispensational doctrine. There is a complete rejection of the Old Testament prophets and what Yahuwah has declared. And what most people don't recognize is that it's in the Old Testament where all clarity has been given. Most Christians are like this pastor when it comes to the scriptures.
Here's the problem, Rabbi. They're reading Joel, Zephaniah, Zechariah, Habakkuk. They're reading prophets that by and large in the Christian church today, those books don't even exist, right? We pastors, we read Malachi to tell people to pay their tithes. Other than that, we don't have any use for Malachi, right? And this is what's going on. So they're reading these scriptures. First of all, he's reading something I didn't even know was in my Bible, right? Secondly, now he's misinterpreting it, but he already has his foot in the door because he showed me where it says, and he's showing me things like Egypt and Ethiopia. Isaiah chapter 11, verse 12, he said from the four corners of the earth, and he's naming these African and Middle Eastern lands. It's right there in the scriptures, right? I'm going, wow, I've never even seen this before, right? So now I'm bringing this back to a pastor who may or may not know these things. If he can't give me a legit answer, that's another reason why I'm going over to here to this thing, right? So
you see, he's just saying what most pastors really believe, but they wouldn't be so bold to actually say so. You see, when they preach, they don't have a use for the Old Testament and those books in the Old Testament. And so, be clear, that's why a majority of Christians have no idea what they are really to expect in regards to the last days. Our goal as believers should be to be heirs of the promise of Abraham. And the promise of Abraham is not to go to heaven, but to dwell in the land given to Abraham and live in peace under the reign of Yah. Because this teaching is pretty much non-existent in the mainstream church, I want to make sure that I provide clarity. Because of what is happening in this world, everyone is talking about the end times. Many Christian content creators are making a lot of content that speaks about the evil agendas in regards to the Bible prophecy. And unfortunately, they are steering people into traps because they themselves are caught in the strong delusion. But away from that fact, let's just focus on what the majority are speaking about. Everyone, for the most part, when talking about the end times, they deal with the plagues of Revelation and the reign of the Antichrist. But most don't truly understand what really is to take place during this period. They focus on the bad, but most don't really understand the good. And because of this, I do believe that it's important to really sum up what it is that we're all waiting for and striving to endure to the end for. The reason people are looking for a pre-tribulation rapture is because they haven't been truly taught about our promises. And it's because, as that pastor clearly says, they have no use for the books from the Old Testament prophets. I want to make sure that there is a teaching that clearly goes over this. So what I will do is do my best to summarize the promises that we are waiting for when our Messiah comes back and reigns as king. I'm going to do a thorough study of the end times that leads to the millennial kingdom and what happens during the millennial reign and then after. I hope this really solidifies all that has been discussed and it brings clarity. Now, I don't have all the answers, But Yahweh has given us enough detail where we can understand what it is that we should be waiting for with real biblical expectations. So we're going to bring it all out. We're going to discuss the millennial kingdom. Let's begin. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to be thorough and go through the scriptures as best that I can. I have tried to illustrate some of this, but it's really hard to do so in the programs that I use, and I'm against using AI. So much of this will be just the scriptures, and I will provide explanations when I can. I have attached a PDF copy of all the scriptures that I've used so you can print out and follow along on your own and study them on your own time. Please know that this will not be completely comprehensive. I will not be able to cover all scriptures that are written about this topic, but I will do my best to cover what I feel is important to focus on. Hope this really blesses you. We will start at what we should all be waiting for. You see, the Christian church has been given a false expectation. The Christian church is trying to go to heaven, and among many other reasons, that's a big reason why I'm against Christianity. The doctrines of Christianity have the followers totally aligned to unbiblical goals, and this is why many will hear that Messiah never knew them. The goals Christians are waiting for have nothing to do with what our Father has actually declared, and that is why so many people will not be ready. We should not be waiting to leave here and go to heaven. We should be waiting for the second Exodus. So this is where we must start if you're going to understand the future prophecy. Now, to start this, we just can't start at the second Exodus. If you're going to understand this, you must understand what our Father did to Yasharel and his anger with them. Then you will understand what he's going to do later in these times that we're waiting for. So let me cover what he did. We'll start here. For Yahuwah will strike Israel as a reed is shaken in the water. He will uproot Israel from this good land which he gave to their fathers, and will scatter them beyond the river, because they have made their wooden images, provoking Yahweh to anger. And he will give Israel up because of the sins of Jeroboam, who sinned and who made Israel sin. That's 1 Kings chapter 14, verses 15 and 16. Next, we have acted very corruptly against you, and have not kept the commandments, the statutes, nor the ordinances which you commanded your servant Moses. Remember, I pray, the word that you commanded your servant Moses, saying, if you are unfaithful, I will scatter you among the nations. That's Nehemiah chapter 1, verses 7 and 8. Also, I will scatter them also among the Gentiles, whom neither they nor their fathers have known. And I will send a sword after them until I have consumed them. Jeremiah chapter 9, verse 16. I will scatter them as with an east wind before the enemy. I will show them the back and not the face in the day of their calamity. Jeremiah chapter 18, verse 17. Or, therefore fathers shall eat their sons in your midst, and sons shall eat their fathers, and I will execute judgments among you. And all of you who remain I will scatter to all the winds. Ezekiel chapter 5, verse 10. Also, then they shall know that I am Yahuwah when I scatter them among the nations and disperse them throughout the countries. But I will spare a few of their men from the sword, from famine, and from pestilence, that they may declare all their abominations among the Gentiles wherever they go. Then they shall know that I am Yahuwah. Ezekiel chapter 12, verses 15 and 16. Also, and Yahuwah will scatter you among the peoples, and you will be left few in number among the nations where Yahuwah will drive you. And there you will serve gods, the works of men's hands, wood and stone, which neither see, nor hear, nor eat, nor smell. Deuteronomy chapter 4, verses 27 and 28. And lastly, and they will fall by the edge of the sword, and be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem will be trampled by Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. Luke chapter 21, verse 24. Okay, so that's the starting point. What you should see from these scriptures is that Yasharel was punished and then they were scattered. And what you'll see next is that they have dealt with the punishment, which is Jacob's trouble, as is prophesied here in Jeremiah 30. Now these are the words that Yahweh spoke concerning Israel and Judah. For thus says Yahweh, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, and not of peace. Ask now and see whether a man is ever in labor with child. So why do I see every man with his hands on his loins like a woman in labor, and all faces turn pale? Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it, and it is the time of Jacob's trouble. That's Jeremiah chapter 30, verses 4 through 7. And you see, that's Jacob's trouble. Okay, so that should be understood. You see, Yasharel was punished and exiled from their land because of their disobedience. But Yahweh has prophesied that he would not forget their covenant. You must understand that he knew of this before he even sent them into the promised land when they were with Moses. In Deuteronomy chapter 4, it says, "When you beget children and grandchildren and have grown old in the land, and act corruptly, and make a carved image in the form of anything, and do evil in the sight of Yahweh your Elohim to provoke him to anger, I call heaven and earth to witness against you this day that you will soon utterly perish from the land which you crossed over the Jordan to possess. You will not prolong your days in it, but will be utterly destroyed. And Yahweh will scatter you among the peoples, and you will be left few in number among the nations where Yahweh will drive you. And there you will serve gods, the work of men's hands, wood and stone, which neither see, nor hear, nor eat, nor smell. But from there you will seek Yahweh your Elohim, and you will find him if you seek him with all your heart and with all your soul. When you are in distress and all these things come upon you in the latter days, when you turn to Yahweh your Elohim and obey his voice, for Yahweh your Elohim is a merciful El. He will not forsake you, nor destroy you, nor forget the covenant of your fathers, which he swore to them." That's Deuteronomy chapter 4, verses 25 through 31. You see, he knew of this before they even made it to the land. He knew that they were going to be punished. He said after this distress, Yasharel would seek him genuinely. And he shows this in this same prophecy when speaking about Jacob's trouble. So we just read up to verse 7. Let's continue reading the prophecy of Jacob's trouble in Jeremiah 30 from the place I left off in verse 7. He explains what he plans to do. It says, "And it is the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. For it shall come to pass in that day, says Yahweh of hosts, that I will break his yoke from your neck, and will burst your bonds. Foreigners shall no more enslave them, but they shall serve Yahweh their Elohim, and David their king, whom I will raise up for them. Therefore do not fear, O my servant Jacob, says Yahweh, nor be dismayed, O Israel. For behold, I will save you from afar, and your seed from the land of their captivity. Jacob shall return, have rest, and be quiet, and no one shall make him afraid. For I am with you, says Yahweh, to save you. Though I make a full end of all nations where I have scattered you, yet I will not make a complete end of you, but I will correct you in justice, and will not let you go altogether unpunished. For thus says Yahweh, your affliction is incurable, your wound is severe. There is no one to plead your cause, that you may be bound up. You have no healing medicines. All your lovers have forgotten you. They do not seek you. For I have wounded you with the wound of an enemy, with the chastisement of a cruel one, for the multitude of your iniquities, because your sins have increased. Why do you cry about your affliction? Your sorrow is incurable. Because of the multitude of your iniquities, because your sins have increased, I have done these things to you. That's Jeremiah chapter 30, verses 4 through 15. So here's some hypocrisy. Christians believe that the Great Tribulation is the time of Jacob's trouble. That's what they believe. But it's actually the opposite. The Great Tribulation is the time when Jacob will be saved out of it, and Yahuwah will bring Yasharel back from his captivity. And this is what we know as the second Exodus. And like I said in the beginning, this is what I've been leading to, but before I got to the second Exodus, I wanted to explain why this would be occurring. So now that we got that out the way, let me explain the second Exodus. There's a lot of scriptures written on this, but I will focus on one of the most clarifying ones. But I will gather the remnant of my flock out of all countries where I have driven them, and bring them back to their folds, and they shall be fruitful and increase. I will set up shepherds over them who will feed them, and they shall fear no more, nor be dismayed, nor shall they be lacking, says Yahweh. Behold, the days are coming, says Yahweh, that I will raise to David a branch of righteousness. A king shall reign and prosper, and execute judgment and righteousness in the earth. In his days, Judah will be saved, and Israel will dwell safely. Now this is his name by which he will be called, Yahweh our righteousness. Therefore, behold, the days are coming, says Yahweh, that they shall no longer say, as Yahweh lives, who brought up the children of Israel from the land of Egypt, but as Yahweh lives, who brought up and led the descendants of the house of Israel from the north country and from all the countries where I have driven them, and they shall dwell in their own land. Jeremiah chapter 23, verses 3 through 8. Hallelujah. And here's another. And it shall come to pass in that day that the remnant of Israel, and such as have escaped of the house of Jacob, will never again depend on him who defeated them, but will depend on Yahweh, the Holy One of Israel, in truth. The remnant will return, the remnant of Jacob, to the mighty El. For though your people, O Israel, be as the sand of the sea, a remnant of them will return. The destruction decreed shall overflow with righteousness. For Yahweh Elohim of hosts will make a determined end in the midst of all the land. That's Isaiah chapter 10, verses 20 through 23. Also, but now, thus says Yahweh, who created you, O Jacob, and he who formed you, O Israel. Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by your name. You are mine. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers, they shall not overflow you. When you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned, nor shall the flame scorch you. For I am Yahweh your Elohim, the Holy One of Israel, your Savior. I gave Egypt for your ransom, Ethiopia and Seba in your place. Since you were precious in my sight, you have been honored, and I have loved you. Therefore I will give men for you, and people for your life. Fear not, for I am with you. I will bring your descendants from the east, and gather you from the west. I will say to the north, give them up, and the south, do not keep them back. Bring my sons from afar, and my daughters from the ends of the earth. Isaiah chapter 43, verses 1 through 6. Also, thus says Yahweh of hosts, behold, I will save my people from the land of the east, and from the land of the west. I will bring them back, and they shall dwell in the midst of Jerusalem. They shall be my people, and I will be their Elohim in truth and righteousness. Zechariah chapter 8, verses 7 and 8. Do you see all this prophecy? And there's many more that speak about this second Exodus. I have a PDF of these scriptures as well that will be on my website for your reference. Again, the link is in the description box. But this is what we're waiting for. This is the promise. And if we understood the Bible, this should be what we're waiting for. Christians literally are believing in fiction that has nothing to do with what he has actually promised. Ask any of them about the second Exodus. Ask any of them about any of these scriptures, and they will not have a clue. Why do you think that is? We are waiting for him to gather Yasharel and bring us into the wilderness, just as he showed John in Revelation chapter 12. It says, now when the dragon saw that he had been cast to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child. But the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into wilderness to her place, where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time, from the presence of the serpent. So the serpent spewed water out of his mouth like a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away by the flood. But the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon had spewed out of his mouth. And the dragon was enraged with the woman, and he went to make war with the rest of her offspring, who keep the commandments of Elohim and have the testimony of Yahushua the Messiah. Revelation chapter 12, verses 13 through 17. You see, Yahuwah, he takes Yasharel into the wilderness away from Satan, and because Satan cannot harm Yasharel, he went to persecute the offsprings. That's the Gentiles that did not come in the second Exodus, but now they need to be tested. And that's why it's important to live in the truth, because if you're not ready, you're going to have it extremely rough dealing with the persecution of the beast and living amongst the judgments in Revelation. Now, we don't know exactly when the second Exodus will start, but we know that before it happens, Yahweh will seal the 144,000 of Yasharel first. And based upon scripture, we know this sealing won't happen before at least the first 4 seals are opened. That's when peace is taken from the earth, so events like World War III, civil wars and unrest, etc., those are happening around the world. Then famine and inflation, that's the dollar collapse and the reset of fiat money, which halts all trade. And then from all of that, a quarter of the population goes. We can expect that the second Exodus won't happen before this point because of what is said in Revelation 7 about the seal of Yasharel. It says, after these things, I saw 4 angels standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, on the sea, or on any tree. I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living Elohim, and he cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels to whom it was granted to harm the earth and the sea, saying, "Do not harm the earth, the sea, or the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our Elohim on their foreheads." Revelation chapter 7, verses 1 through 3. And then if you continue reading, he goes down and explains who gets sealed. So as reading that, if you pay attention to the words, it was said to the angels to not harm the earth, the sea, or the trees until the 144,000 are sealed. So during those first 4 seals, the earth, the sea, and the trees, they're not affected. So we know that it doesn't happen before then. But by the 6th seal, the earth is shaken, and by the first trumpet, everything goes nuts. So based upon the word, you can assume that by the time we see a quarter of the population go, soon after this, the 144,000 of Yasharel will be sealed. So what do you do with this knowledge now? You should be prepared now to go through some hard and difficult times on the earth while judgment comes to these nations. Though the judgment is not for you, you can't get around what's going to happen to everyone that's living here. The world is going to change, and life as you know it right now is going to change. So as the world goes through its judgments, you must prepare for times of war, prepare for civil unrest, famine, absolute money problems, and massive death. If you are prepared, then as these events happen, you will not be shaken, and you will just know that you are to just watch and wait. Very similar to how Yasharel did in Egypt as all those judgments came for the Egyptians. If you know these things are happening, and you know they have nothing to do with you, you will be fine. But those not prepared spiritually and mentally, they will have difficult times ahead, which is why I spoke so much against the pre-tribulation rapture. That doctrine is going to lead a great majority in panic and distress because they are not prepared. I mean, there are so many that don't want to hear that truth, and they're going to have an issue when this all happens. If you are ready, it doesn't have to be you. Consider yourself to be like Yasharel in Egypt. As the plagues went against the Egyptians, it had nothing to do with them. It's the same for you. Now, people often ask questions about who and what are the 144,000. I don't have answers except that he's very specific. 12,000 from each tribe of Yasharel. Back in the day, I used to think that that was such a small number. But when I look at the world today and see how many people are really against his truths, today that number seems big. But either way, it's 144,000 of Yasharel that gets sealed. We don't have much more information on this, and that's by Yah's design. We don't know if that's each individual person, like the members of my family, or if it's by household. We don't know exactly how the sealing works, but we know it's 144,000. I don't listen to all of the people's analysis about the 144,000. There have been so many different doctrines and beliefs surrounding them. I turn it all off. I pay attention to none of it. If it doesn't match exactly what the scriptures say, I ignore it. The only thing you know is what Yah has said about it, nothing else. Like the Jehovah's Witnesses, they completely made a false belief surrounding them. What we know is that the 144,000 of Yasharel around the world will be sealed. And I believe that it's all about the second Exodus. And I'll explain that soon. Now, please note that these 144,000 are not the same 144,000 in Revelation 14. The ones in Revelation 14 are already in heaven with the Lamb, before the living creatures and the elders. This is not the same as what is in Revelation chapter 7. Please read it all in context. Read them both and understand the difference. Now, the next important part is about the 2 witnesses. I feel that when the 2 witnesses come, we will receive more clarity because it said that they will prophesy for 1260 days. It says, "And I will give power to my 2 witnesses, and they will prophesy 1260 days clothed in sackcloth." Revelation chapter 11, verse 3. So they're going to be here prophesying. You see, people have a lot of different interpretations saying that these 2 witnesses are this or they're that. Many different interpretations, just like with the 144,000. But I believe they are what is told. That's it. They are the 2 witnesses that stand before our Father. It says, "These are the 2 olive trees and 2 lampstands standing before the Elohim of the earth." Revelation chapter 11, verse 4. And you see, this concurs with what is spoken in Zechariah chapter 4. It says, "Then I answered and said to him, what are these 2 olive trees at the right of the lampstand and at its left? And I further answered and said to him, what are these 2 olive branches that drip into the receptacles of the 2 golden pipes, from which the golden oil drains? Then he answered me and said, do you not know what these are, And I said, no, my Adonai. So he said, these are the two anointed ones who stand beside the Adonai of the whole earth. Zechariah chapter 4, verses 11 through 14. It's the same thing written of them that we see in Revelation 11. There are many speculations about who these men could be, but it really doesn't matter right now because it's all speculation. What we do know is that these two anointed ones come down and they prophesy. And based on what is written, they are physically here. They have power. It says, these have power to shut heaven so that no rain falls in the days of their prophecy. And they have power over waters to turn them to blood and to strike the earth with all plagues as often as they desire. Revelation chapter 11, verse 6. And we know they're physically here because at some point they're going to be killed and 3 days rise from the dead and get taken back up to heaven. So again, I believe they're physically here based upon all that's said. I mean, it says, then those from the peoples, tribes, tongues, and nations will see their dead bodies 3.5 days and not allow their dead bodies to be put into graves. Revelation chapter 11, verse 9. You see, if everyone is looking at their dead bodies, you should expect them to be physically here. It's just that simple. Anyways, they're here to prophesy, and they will be here for us. If they're here to prophesy, I'm waiting to hear what they come back and prophesy and say. Right now, we have a lot of unanswered questions, and I believe Yah is going to send them to prophesy and provide more clarity about what we need to do for the second Exodus. He's sending his anointed ones to prophesy for us, and when they come, we will gain clarity for those with ears to hear. Now here's the thing. I don't know exactly what he will do and how he will do it. When he removed Yasharah from Egypt in the first Exodus, they did not know what he was going to do until right before he did it and gave instructions. When we see the plagues and judgments in Revelation, we can look at them as being similar judgments before he removed Yasharah from Egypt. The most important thing that Yasharah needed to do at that time was trust in Yah and wait on him. This is our same requirement. Today people sit and they wait for this false pre-tribulation rapture, all because they don't trust Yahuwah enough in their lives that he can really cover and guard them during their trials. But again, we don't know completely what he's going to do, but he did give us clues. Like he did in the first Exodus, when he gave the firstborn of Egypt up for us in the Passover. He said in Isaiah 43 that he gave Egypt for our ransom and Ethiopia and Seba in our place. He said, therefore I will give men for you and people for your life. So other nations, other people are going to be judged. They're going to come into judgment just so he can hold them as ransom for us. So obviously there's going to be problems in this world, and he's going to force Satan to give us up or it's all over. And here's the thing. The world, they're not going to understand it, and it's not going to look like a good thing. The media is not going to spin it and say, oh, this is Yahuwah getting ready for the second Exodus. Absolutely not. And if that's your expectations, you're not going to be ready for what's happening. I remember there was a short skit of this where aliens said that they wanted only black people or something like that.
Put more simply, in trade for solving all your most pressing domestic catastrophes, we are asking for every person in your country that you would classify as black.
Are you kidding?
No, we are not.
I'm posting that video to my website. These Masons are expecting something, I promise you that. Anyways, when the world hears what's going on, it will not sound like a good thing to everyone else. Again, the media is not going to promote it as the second Exodus of the Bible. You're not going to hear Anderson Cooper talking about this is Yah bringing judgment and bringing his children back. Absolutely not. You're going to need discernment and understanding and understand what it is that is happening in this world. And if you don't know Bible prophecy, that's exactly why you will not be ready for it. Yah is going to do it though, and he's doing it with fury poured out. So while the world is being judged, we should expect Yah to be moving. Don't let it surprise you that the movement with immigration in this country has something to do with it though. There's a reason why they're doing all of this right now. It's possible that they're making it an issue, making us actually fight to stay here instead of leaving because Yah is calling us. So when it happens later and they bring it onto us, we're fighting to stay here instead of understanding that Yah is calling us home. And many will stay because they were fighting to be in Babylon instead of recognizing that this is the second Exodus. Please use discernment. Also, we see Trump doing travel bans in many places where Yasharel are scattered, and I hear that he's going to be doing some more. The places he seems to be targeting are not by accident. There's obviously an agenda. One of the agendas could be just reverse psychology, to get us to fight to be in Babylon instead of understanding that they are saying it's time for us to leave. So if you see more travel bans, don't react with the rest of the world. It's a game. People want what they can't have. Imagine fighting to stay in a place that hates you and wants to oppress you. If they start making it hard for us to leave or stay, don't react like the mind-controlled ones here. Don't do any of that. Don't follow the mind control. Don't follow all that racist nonsense. It doesn't matter. If you understand prophecy, you will be ready. But again, many will not be, and they will be judged. We do not know what he will do. But just like he showed his power to Egypt, expect the same thing, except with more power. Again, we don't know exactly how he's going to do it, but we know that he will do it because he has said it many times over. It's up to us to make sure that we believe him. So we must wait on him and trust him to do it. I know everyone has a lot of questions like, what about this? Or will he do that? I don't have all the answers. Now, as I keep saying, nobody knows for sure. But in regards to the second Exodus, I will tell you what I feel will happen. I obviously don't know this for sure, and this is when I say I am speculating. But I believe that the second Exodus may occur during the time of the fifth trumpet. It says, "Then out of the smoke locusts came upon the earth, and to them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. They were commanded not to harm the grass of the earth, or any green thing, or any tree, but only those men who do not have the seal of Elohim on their foreheads. And they were not given authority to kill them, but to torment them for 5 months. Their torment was like the torment of a scorpion when it strikes a man." Revelation chapter 9, verse 3 through 5. So look, at that period, the whole world is going to be tormented for 5 months. And so I feel that this will be the time of the second Exodus. The rest of the world will be attacked by locusts, and only those sealed will be able to move freely. So I believe he is giving us a window to move in this world without anyone bothering us, and we will have access to everything. For 5 months, everyone will be tormented, and it will be a natural lockdown. Very similar to how the world was shut down from COVID. But everyone will be locked away except those sealed. Now let me also say this, if you're a wild branch, please do not have fear. Yah knows you, and he has promised to cover those faithful to him. That's his promise. I believe that we all will gain clarity when the two witnesses appear. I also believe that everyone attached to the 144,000 will be able to leave and go where we're told to go. But the many that are so against this truth, they're going to have problems. Again, being clear, this is my speculation, and I'm not saying it's 100% solid and not able to be challenged, but it makes sense to me, so I'm bringing it out. He is very specific about how long the locusts will be attacking everyone. No one will be able to halt us from coming to where he tells us to go. But we will see. All I know is that during this time, at some point, we will be led into the wilderness, into safety. And because of all that, the devil, seeing that he could do nothing to us, he's going to attack those that did not come with us. And that's when you see what happens in Revelation 13 and after. Now, while Yasharel is in the wilderness, Yahweh says he will deal with us face to face. It says, "As I live, says Yahweh Elohim, surely with a mighty hand, with an outstretched arm, and with fury poured out, I will rule over you. I will bring you out from the peoples and gather you out of the countries where you are scattered, with a mighty hand, with an outstretched arm, and with fury poured out. And I will bring you into the wilderness of the peoples, and there will plead my case with you face to face, just as I pleaded my case with your fathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt. So I will plead my case with you, says Yahweh Elohim. I will make you pass under the rod, and I will bring you into the bond of the covenant. I will purge the rebels from among you, and those who transgress against me. I will bring them out of the country where they dwell, but they shall not enter the land of Israel. Then you will know that I am Yahweh." Ezekiel chapter 20, verses 33 to 38. And so if you're following this so far, this is what we're all waiting to happen. We should be waiting for the second Exodus and for Yahweh to gather us into the wilderness where he will plead his case with us face to face, gathering us from where he scattered us and bringing us into the bond of the covenant. He is even going to purge out the rebels from amongst us. It's important to know that in the second Exodus, some will come with us that do not belong, and they all will be dealt with. This is actual Bible prophecy and what we're waiting for right now. So let's understand it clearly. First, Yasharel rebelled and sinned against Yahweh. Second, because of their sins, Yahuwah punished and scattered Yasharel to the four corners of the earth. 3. In the last days, Yahuwah will gather his flock of Yasharel, where he scattered them, and bring them to the wilderness, where he will deal with them face to face, as he did in the first Exodus. That is the whole setup. While the world panics and they move all outside of Yah's will, if you stay grounded in your faith, you will do fine. Use what happened during the times of COVID as an example. Remember, everyone was panicking, frantic, living in fear. If you knew to turn off all those other voices and just trust Yah, you would have enjoyed that period. I know I enjoyed the period of COVID. My biggest irritation was just watching the people living in fear and that were mind controlled. That was my biggest problem. It was those stupid masks, but everything else, it was great because the streets were clear. But here's the deal. In this coming situation, there will actually be a reason for people to fear because they're going to lose everything. If you stay grounded in Yah and you trust in him, you will be ready when he calls us. So understand, I don't know what he will do exactly, because it's not only about us here in America, we're scattered all over the world. But I know he said he will do it, and he said it many times. So I trust him to do so. And that's what the second Exodus is about. But the next question is, what happens next after the second Exodus and he gathers us? And so there's a lot more to go over and explain, but I could not get there without covering all of this in the second Exodus, because the next parts, they won't make sense to you if you don't understand the second Exodus. So I'm sorry if you heard all of this before, if you watched my videos about this in the past, but I can't do a teaching without providing proper foundation. So this is understanding the second Exodus, but next we will lead into what happens in the millennial kingdom. So go to part 2 of this and understand what happens when we get to the millennial kingdom. If you want to understand what's prophesied to happen after the second Exodus, I will explain it in part 2. I hope this helps all of you who are just looking for clarity about the last days. I'm gathering scriptures together and putting them in some kind of order so it can be understood. So just hit the link here and go to the next video. See you in part 2. Be blessed. Hallelujah. Praise Yah. Thanks again, everyone, for watching. I love you all.